On April 9th, 2017, United Airlines enforced an involuntary removal procedure after a flight to Louisville, Kentucky had been overbooked, and the flight did not gain enough volunteers through compensation to provide enough seats for staffing. The involuntary removal procedure was carried out by a computer choosing 4 passengers at random. Dr. Dow refused to give up his seat. He was one of the passengers chosen at random. His reasoning he explained to United employees that he is a physician and needed to be in Louisville, Kentucky the next day. He was forcefully removed from his seat and dragged off the plane by law enforcement with a reported concussion, broken nose, and 2 missing front teeth. Passengers recorded the incident, and the videos received millions of views within 48 hours and hundreds of thousands of shares from Facebook to X and every other. Key players in this situation: United representation representing one side of the story, Dr. David Dow representing himself as another side of the story, the Department of Chicago Aviation Law Enforcement. They are the employers of the 2 officers that were later fired, that physically removed Dr. Dow. The passengers were the first-hand witnesses, with online users becoming secondary witnesses on different platforms, and finally, the judgment and confidential private. So the social media evidence in this case, this became a public relations nightmare for United Airlines. Passengers witnessed firsthand the removal, or how they phrased it in their initial response as reaccommodation that was taking place. And the videos were posted to Facebook. They received over 18 million views, 200,000 shares. They were reposted by private individuals, news outlets. More angles and additional information were being sought out by CNN and ABC. Outrage online primarily gained steam on X, with additional angles in the footage being pushed on the platform in real time while the conversation was ongoing. United Airlines was trending for the incident, and many people online posted hashtags such as Boycott United, while others flooded United Airlines and United Journey, the official hashtags for the airlines and their company slogan. Furthermore, meme culture this data analytics behind this, Facebook, 18 million views, 200K shares, 48 hours. Their algorithm relies on this, and therefore the video got pushed more to other platforms. On X, over 10 to 30K retweets and 10 to 20K likes within 24 hours. This is where the heavy hashtag usage comes in, and interaction. Reddit, it reached number 1 on our videos, over 50K upvotes, and acted as increased engagement and awareness around the situation. And of course, traditional news, thousands of local stations and major stations embedded the video into coverage, sought out more information, and spread the story to older generations and those who are not on social media. Important metrics: Facebook views, stock value is lost at its worst point. They lost 4% that day of the incident. The customer purchase consideration was cut in half. The negative reputation rating multiplied 6-fold, and it took almost a year for the brand to recover. However, they lost in reputation more or less than financials, where how they were actually able to exceed their fiscal yearly financial goal, in part with this situation kind of bringing those expectations down. The United response timeline: United released an initial statement basically saying the flight was overbooked, volunteers were sought out, one customer refused to leave voluntarily, and law enforcement was called. The airline apologized for the overbooking situation. So basically it lacked context, it was insensitive and did not apologize, and without saying it, more or less putting it on, leaving it open to assumption that the passenger could be in the wrong. The next day, Oscar Munoz released his first statement, saying it was an upsetting event for everyone at United and that he apologized to have to reaccommodate the customers. Later this day, an internal email is leaked from an employee to a news station, uncovering Munoz telling his employees that they followed established procedure and the passenger was disruptive and belligerent, and that he stood behind his employees. However, in the video, you can see the passenger did not become belligerent, did not become disruptive, until he was forcefully removed from his seat and was suffering injuries. The day following, outrage reached its peak with hashtags, commentary, and videos still floating around relevantly online, millions of views. The story was now global, and politicians were even commenting on the incident, just marking United's suffering of reputational damages in this case. That same day, Munoz reversed his stance and calls the incident truly horrific, and no one should ever be mistreated this way. April 12th, United CEO goes on national television for an interview. He said it cannot and will not happen again, and is one of the more memorable quotes from him. When he was directly asked if Dr. Dow, United's response in this case, they said it was a reaccommodation. They downplayed the severity of force and injuries that occurred with a limited explanation. The response and phrasing to a passenger being physically dropped out of the plane was contradictory in nature, and it was late. And again, we also saw the contradictory statements with the leaked email. To the public, United was sorry for the incident, but behind closed doors, they held a contradictory perspective, blaming the passenger being shared to employees. The public could no longer trust United leadership or the face of it. Instead, the story being highlighted by big accounts on platforms, the incident grew from United's own actions in response. The poor PR responses and a lack of expressed sympathy for Dr. Dow, the story itself was amplified from an individual versus large corporation perspective, and United's attempt to control the narrative and language was the key contributor to online outrage. On April 27th, 2017, they reached a confidential settlement agreement with Dr. Dow. At the time, Munoz announced commitments to no longer working with law enforcement and abolishing the involuntary removal procedure. Compensation packages would be increased up to $10,000. Reduced overbooking practices, new system to solicit volunteers, and customer service initiatives were also set out, and also a national advertising campaign followed. The ethical dynamic in this case involves a private individual against a billion-dollar corporation. However, this case was captured firsthand by witnesses videotaping, and in real time, we saw a power shift from the corporation with the money and the lawyers to Dr. David Dow, with public perception and public opinion being clearly showing that United was in the wrong and showed a use of force that should never happen. And it created an ongoing reputation disaster. It was not a mistake. It was a result of bad business practices. The involuntary removal procedure is un-American, should have never been in there, and forcefully removing a paying customer goes directly against traditional capitalistic ethics. In this case, the court of public opinion was decided on Facebook and actually millions of views and comments on the situation. Companies try to control the narrative in these situations using deceiving language. However, the case was decided when United was forced to reconcile after it became the financially smart decision to put an end to the reputational damages around the controversy. This case is an example to all in business and marketing to invest in public relations, training, or to educate yourself on business ethics and practical consumer relations. It is another example of how social media holding an entity publicly accountable and real change can be made with enough attention. The conclusion, in my opinion, this case reflects the future of society in America at its least. High-level courts have taken full attention from the nation for decades, with public opinion always playing a key role. X as a platform is a national platform where the primary digital discourse is held. Politicians, companies, institutions, and private individuals often interact with each other, and the court of public opinion is decided here. Regardless of platform and control and design, this case reflects the importance of online discourse and the real-world impact that can be made with just a few videos and communication. That is my conclusion. These are my sources and videos. I try to get it under